The monks. 2 days at the what and all I've done is count shit. The dots on the ceiling. How long it takes for a stick of incense to crumble into ashes. The number of steps to the kitchen, where the grandmas are always talking smack about everyone, even about each other to their own faces. What goes down at the temple was supposed to be more spiritual, and eye-opening, and informative, like how preachers in the movies holler out prayers. How they push regular guys to see themselves differently. Instead, I count the white stitches on my orange robes. Then the stitches on the robes of the monks praying next to me. My crew would bust my balls if they found out my temple life consists of counting. And if they found out I sleep in a tiny, funky-smelling room. It's not a bad funky, but more like a couple banged in a pile of ash funky. We told you the what's hella fake, my boys would say. Sad dopes with no jobs, no place to live, they become monks. And Mally, she'd be pissed. She didn't want me to shave my head for the bon, told me I looked like an aborted alien fetus after the initial ceremonies, before I came to the temple to ensure Dad's spirit, or whatever he is now, passes gently into its next life. Come back when your scalp stops feeling like a giant dick, she said, kicking me off her bed. I can't believe you're wasting a week on that sick fuck you called a dad, she also said. After Dad's funeral was the last time I got off. Just a quickie with Mally, who wouldn't kiss me because of my bald head. I still appreciated her. Nothing since then, not even a good bait session. Counting relaxes me though. It's something to pass the time. If I could, I would count how many hours I've been alive, or seconds, or how much longer I have until I'm shipped off to basic combat training, but I don't have the patience for all that. I'm not a whiz kid. I'm not living a Cambo version of stand and deliver. I fucked up my classes, and none of my teachers cared enough to warn me. They were too busy putting on stand and deliver, so they could avoid teaching the real stuff. Maybe if I score a calculator from the Cha's office, I can take my counting to the next level. But he would just tell me to chill. He'd rant about the universe being like this and how karma being like that, and before I know it, I'd be scrubbing off the silly string that's been stuck to the pavement since last Cambodian New Year. It's all for that nirvana, he'd say, laughing his ass off from the porch. Boy, you better build up your karma if you're going off to war, he'd say. Before lunch. Push-ups, 45, 5 more than Poe does in the morning. Sit-ups, 60, 10 more than Poe does in the morning. Times I thought about Mally's body, lost count, maybe the whole time? The other day, when I first got here, the Cha handed me a notepad. We stood in the center of the big prayer room, and the giant and fake gold Buddha stared us down from the stage. I swear the stage has been overdue for a collapse since I was in middle school. Khmer music played in the background. Being there without a crowd of kneeling grandparents, I felt strange and naked. I imagined a sea of old Cambos surrounding us, their wrinkly heads bobbing up and down to pray. Am I supposed to write Buddhist stuff in here? I asked. You write your feelings down, Rithi, the Cha said roughly. His white polo drowned him in shirt. I could tell the polo was a knockoff because the horse logo was twice the size it should have been. It was also placed exactly where a guy's right nipple goes. I saw it on TV, the Cha added. This talk show lady interviewed a woman who wrote every day for a year. It helped her forget her dead husband. You mean it helped her forget her sadness? I asked, staring at his logo nipple. I couldn't figure out if the fabric was just that lumpy, or if the Cha's nipples poked through shirts weirdly. You know what I mean, the Cha said, waving like he was fed up. Take it and write. He placed his hands over mine and pushed the notepad closer to me. Got it, I think, I said. Anything else I should know or do? Tomorrow you'll start doing chores, he answered. We all earn our keep. There are robes in your room. Don't mess them up, we're not made of money. He pointed at the hallway to the left of him. It's the second door. Don't be an idiot and get lost. I started to ask him if there was a schedule of monk things for the day, or a list of Buddhist objectives I'm supposed to meet for my dad's bon, but the cha interrupted me. "Tell your uncle I said hello," he said, like my temple week had already ended. "I'm gonna whip his ass at poker night," he also said. Then he flew across the prayer mats, straight into his office. In my room, I turned the notepad over and found hella grease stains, plus the word Speedy Transmissions MANUFACTUR printed in bubble letters, above a cartoon car with big round eyes. The cha doesn't realize that hundreds of these dirty notepads live in Poe's house. And since I live with my uncle too, and have for years because dad was no help, the cha's gift felt empty. He basically re-gifted me something my uncle had re-gifted to him. I waited in my room for the rest of the afternoon, for a monk to come for me, or the cha, whose literal job is to be a mediator between the monks and normal guys like me, but no one did. When I finally left to hunt for food, the monks seemed surprised to see me. They forgot why I was here. Now I'm at the what for 5 more days, and not much has happened since the cha gave me the notepad. I don't have many feelings worth writing down, so I jot down lists of what I count. When the cha sees me writing, he doesn't ask me to do random shit for the monks. He thinks I'm processing my sadness, and leaves me alone. I wouldn't mind doing things for the monks if those things mattered, if they did something for dad's spirit, but the cha makes it seem like they're just chores. Sometimes when I'm writing, I think about my uncle, how he's probably doing his same old self at the house. Every night Poe comes back from fixing cars, and he counts how much money he made. He adds up his paychecks, bills, and expenses, along with the number of push-ups he did that morning, all in his dirty notepads. When I try to throw out his old notepads, Poe hurls empty beer cans at my head. I guess breathing in those stacked-up notepads is another way for him to keep track of how much he's gained. Steps from my room to the prayer room, where I keep falling asleep while praying, 25. To the kitchen, where the grandmas slip me extra food, 58. To the fountain, which is pretty peaceful, 115. It's not that I don't like the monks. Some are chill. 2 of them split cigs with me in the mornings, after our prayer sessions, and before our chores. I call them Monk B and Monk C because we don't talk or share facts about ourselves, like our names. We smoke out by the fountain, away from all the statues of Buddha in the garden. I think the monks are trying to hide their smoking habits from all the Buddhas. But Monk A doesn't like me. He's always yelling at me for sweeping wrong or messing up the incense trays. He thinks I'm a fuck-up for enlisting, according to the cha. I probably am, so I don't blame him or anything. What did the cha say? "Oh yeah," he said, "war's not the best conversation starter for any of us. Don't you know shit about the Khmer Rouge?" I should keep that in mind from now on. Here is what I know about the monks. Monk A is skinny and Monk C is not, which I don't get because there's not much food here, unless there's a funeral, or a wedding, or it's Cambodian New Year. Monk B, though, is jacked, with black tattoos that wrap around his arms. The other day I asked Monk B how he got so jacked, if he did some monk training regimen. He shrugged and just kept smoking. Then he offered me another cig. He must do push-ups, maybe even pull-ups. Maybe his room has ceiling pipes he can hang from. I should have brushed up on Khmer. I would have been able to communicate with the monks. At least thank them for the cigs without sounding like a jackass. Monk B and C treat me well, but that's because I'm a guest, not an actual monk. They also feel sorry, probably. No one expected me to follow tradition. Even Poe was surprised. "I don't get why you want to stay at the what," he said. "Everyone knows your dad was a dipshit," he also said. I told him I feel like someone should do right by him. He had no one at the end of it all. There's a new monk too. Monk D's my age, roughly my height and size, and speaks decent English compared to the other monks. He doesn't smoke out by the fountain. He spends his time following Monk A because he's in monk training. I bet he still feels out of place. I actually overheard Monk D's real name from the cha. No one calls him by it, so I'm not sure if it's still his name. I wonder if the older monks say their old names in their heads. Do they think of themselves as only monks? Maybe when I leave for the army that will happen to me. I'll stop thinking of myself as one thing, and as part of another. I wonder if that will make me a better or worse person. Before sleep. Push-ups, 88. Sit-ups, 125. Squats, 55. Burpees, 50. My third night at the Wat, I went outside to jog laps around the backyard. Monk D was sitting on the ground, facing one of the Buddhas in the garden. He barely glanced at me when I sat down next to him. We did say hi to each other though. I mentioned that it seemed like neither of us thought those temple mats were comfy, not enough to sleep well, and he nodded. He looked like he didn't want to talk, but I stayed. I wasn't gonna end the conversation myself. He was still a monk, and you can't be rude to monks. You see how this one is strange? Monk D asked. I scoped out the other Buddhas in the garden. It was true, this Buddha was different from the rest. The colored paint was chipping and faded, and the guy who'd made him added a ton of muscles that bulged out of the Buddha's robes. I guess the statue maker was tired of Buddha being a fat guy people laugh at while shopping for chopsticks. I gave the Buddha a closer look and realized he was cross-eyed. He looked like a dumb jock, flexing until his pupils went all fucked up. Why is that? I asked. I actually didn't expect Monk D to know why, or to keep speaking, but he told me about the Buddha. According to what Monk A told Monk D, the statue was gifted to the temple by this guy who donates money every year. Monk A didn't want to offend the guy, because of his donations, so he put the Buddha in the garden, with the other statues that come directly from Cambodia. The guy used to be a legit statue maker. Then he lost a couple of fingers, an eye, and most of his family in the genocide. Now, he works as a janitor for a school. He still makes statues, but they always turn out looking weird. Staring at the Buddha, I thought about the statue maker, how he doesn't have a family to distract him from the talent he lost. Some little kids he could support and use as an excuse for not making statues. Do you have a girlfriend? Monk D asked, breaking our silence. I told him I did have a girlfriend. Why you staying here if you have a girlfriend? He responded. Because I'm supposed to be here, I said. Isn't that why you're here? No, he said, shaking his head. I'm here because I want to be here. He stood up and brushed the dirt off his robes. Then he went back inside the temple. I jogged around the backyard after Monk D left. I counted my laps by having the cross-eyed Buddha work as my marker. It was probably the jogging that wiped me out, but every time I counted a lap, I swore passing the Buddha by was draining my energy. Like it was haunted and a ghost was sapping the life from me. It would have made more sense if the statue guy had never added extra muscles, if the Buddha was just a regular fat Buddha. Times Po calls my dad a shit, around 5 a day. Times Po talks about mom, hardly ever but sometimes. Times Po calls my dad a shit while drinking low-calorie beer, too many to count. Times I agree with Po, usually I think. When I woke up, the Cha said to meet him in his office after lunch. I found myself rushing through my chores. I think I swept even more dust into the smaller prayer rooms. I hoped the Cha would finally teach me some ritual I needed to complete. Something that would help Dad's spirit not be restless. Something that would guarantee him a peaceful new life, anything nicer than the shitshow that was his last one. The Cha's office was smaller than I'd expected, the size of a supply closet. I couldn't imagine how the Cha had gotten his desk through the doorway. Monk A and the Cha sat on the same side, on mismatched folding chairs. They crammed against each other so closely their arms touched. There was no chair for me. I think Monk A had taken the chair that was supposed to be on my side of the desk. I felt awkward there in front of them. Rithi, how are you doing? The Cha asked, and Monk A nodded. I'm fine, I said. For a second I considered squatting to their level. I wasn't sure how to position myself. Now I'm pretty sure that looking down at a monk counts as being disrespectful. We want to check on you, the Cha said. He shuffled through a stack of papers. On his desk were a bunch of Poe's dirty notepads. Make sure you're doing good. This time Monk A didn't nod. That's it? I blurted, and both Monk A's nostrils got wider. Boy, you better watch your tone, the Cha said, lifting his head from his papers. You have something you want to say? He asked while squinting at me. I mean, I've been here for 3 days and all I do is clean. And? He asked. Aren't there more important tasks I need to complete? I answered. Being here is fine, he replied. Don't worry about it. I thought I'm supposed to be worrying? I said. Isn't that the point, to worry about my dad's spirit? My voice rose and I stressed my words by waving my arms. It just happened. I couldn't help it. Then Monk A scolded me in Khmer. He told me to calm down in a hard, intimidating way, but I was on a roll. Why am I here if it's not directly helping my dad? I continued. How is me just being at the what helping anyone, except you guys, who get to do less chores for a week? My hands pointed in the direction of Monk A, and this made him mad. He yelled at me in Khmer for a long time, louder than I'd ever known him to speak. Louder than when he addresses an audience at weddings and funerals. He spoke so fast his words blurred together, and my head hurt because I couldn't translate at his pace. Please, I said, interrupting Monk A, I need some air. Without waiting for a response, I left the Cha's office and went outside, knowing I'd come across as rude. I paced back and forth. I was tired of Monk A and the Cha acting like they were helping. And I was tired of feeling fuzzy, about the temple, about everything I did. The other monks stared from across the courtyard, smoking in silence. It was like they had never moved from those spots. Like they did nothing but kill themselves with cigs. Rooms I've swept at the temple so far, 5. Total push-ups I've done at the temple so far, at least 300. Hours I work a week, 60. Total cigs I've smoked with the monks so far, at least a whole pack. Little cousins I drive to and pick up from school, 4. How much I owe people outside the temple, too much to think about. The Cha told my uncle about our interaction. He called me into his office again, and it reminded me of that time I got sent to the vice principals in high school. I'd missed too much class and some other shit. I got tagged in the records as truant. He didn't know that sometimes I skipped 6th and 7th period to make money and help Poe pay his doctor bills. That was a rough time when Poe's spine got fucked and he took a break from fixing cars 10 hours a day. Monk A wasn't in the room, only the Cha, but the spare chair had stayed on the Cha's side of the desk. I figured that was intentional on his part. After a moment, the Cha pointed at the phone lying sideways on his desk. I had to lean forward because it was old school, with a cord and everything, and right when I lifted its speaker to my ear, Poe screaming, "What kind of crap are you pulling?" Nearly knocked me over. Jesus, I said, then felt weird for saying Jesus in the temple. Poe, why are you so mad? I'm just trying to complete a good bond. Poe snorted. I don't give a damn about your father's bond. I looked at the Cha's blank expression. I wondered if he also didn't give a damn. Poe went on, but you wanted to do the what, so you need do it right. Don't make me look bad. If a monk wants to lecture you, hell, if he wants to slap the stupid out your skull, you better stay put and take it. I am trying to do the what right, I said. All I want is some guidance. Look, traditions don't gotta be logical, Poe said, sounding more exhausted than mad but still pretty mad. What do you expect? We aren't home, so why the hell would anything make sense? Now stop doing all this thinking and do what you're told. I wanted to ask how I could do what I'm told when no one was telling me shit, but then Poe added, don't forget, you have to help with the roof. You better not forget when you get back. That was the last comment he said before hanging up. Later, Monk A doubled my daily chores for the rest of my week here. So now I am sweeping the whole building. I am supposed to be learning a lesson, which is not to ignore a yelling monk, I guess. Honestly, I thought about leaving the what, calling Mally to pick me up, but I can't face Po, not without patching things up with Monk A and the Cha. Monk D approaches me while I'm cleaning the big prayer room. He puts his hand on my shoulder. It almost seems like he wants to hug me. But he only points at the speakers. You hear that? He asks. Yeah, I answer, it's some praying song. Focus, he says, raising his finger a little higher. I close my eyes to catch the music. I listen for a bit, following the beat. Then it hits me. It's a cover of Hey Jude, I say before laughing. Monk D nods, smiles at me, and walks away. Doing the rest of my chores, I think about what Po told me, about us not being home. If I had to choose, I guess anywhere Mally's living would be my home. Though we'll probably break up when I leave for the army. She's not the type to wait around for a guy, and I don't need her to be. I didn't enlist because I want more pressure. That's the opposite of what I want. Funny, I've lived here in this city my entire life, but I wouldn't really call it my home. Years Mally and I have been together, since we were 18, so too. Times Mally broke up with me for. Times I broke up with Mally too. How often Mally goes down on me, usually but never after I work out. How often I go down on Mally, sometimes but maybe not enough. How long our sex lasts, an entire episode of The Simpsons, so 22 minutes. How often we have sex while high, we never have sex not high. The monk's early bedtime really isn't going well for me. Even though I was exhausted from the double amount of chores, I couldn't fall asleep that fourth night. I found the joint I hid in my room and twirled it in my fingers. For a good hour I considered lighting it up, right on my mat. I'd tucked the joint into my shoe before coming here. It's what I used to do in school, because sometimes I toked up during fifth period, behind the boys' locker room. Sometimes I got stressed. It's pretty gross to hit a joint that has touched my feet. But it gets the job done. Smoking weed would have knocked me out. But I'm trying to kick the habit. Can't depend on grass to sleep in the future. Plus, I'm saving the joint for my last night, when Dad's bon is complete. I figured staying at the what would help me get away from weed, at least for a bit. My crew didn't understand. Because I have some time before leaving, before my basic combat training, they told me I should be as high as possible, all day every day. The shit isn't addictive, they said. What's the problem? They think I enlisted to make myself miserable. For a while, I saw Dad only when he scored weed from me. He called using a different number every time we set up a deal, and I never told anyone about seeing him. Po would flip his shit, even now that Dad is dead. Po always swore he'd kick Dad's ass for bailing after Mom died. But I have to give him one thing, really. Dad kept my cell number memorized, all through those last few years. We usually met at the donut shop not owned by Cambos, as Dad always wanted to be discreet. He'd try to make the whole deal seem like a regular family breakfast. He'd buy me coffee and whatnot, make a point of remembering I like crullers. He'd ask me questions about my life. We never talked about his stuff. I knew neither of us cared to hash that out sitting in Happy Donuts. I half think he wasn't that into weed. I mean, the guy was shooting up every weekend. But maybe he needed the extra motivation to talk to me while sober. I bet he sometimes just wanted to feel normal for 20 minutes, or thought he did at least. He'd forget who he was sometimes, I bet, and then convince himself to see his son and eat donuts. And then, afterward, when he remembered himself again, he'd smoke weed on top of the junk, because maybe his normal felt that bad? If his normal hadn't been terrible, why else did he end up the way he did? Once I almost brought Mally to meet him. It was Dad's idea. He said he'd make sure Mally, as the old Cambos say, wasn't a woman who carried a basket with holes. I was about to text Mally about it and everything. I wanted Dad to see me with a girlfriend, because he would actually understand that. It wouldn't register as nothing, like everything else I told him. But I knew Mally might try to defend me, start yelling at him for not being around. I didn't want that. He'd been through so much, I still feel like I owe him. The guy had endured genocide to get me here. The guy had lost his wife. He deserved a break, even from being my dad. Things I will miss when I'm shipped off. Having sex with Mally. Mally, in general. Smoking weed with the crew. Watching kung fu movies. Cambodian food. Being able to decide things for myself. Today Monk D and I ate dinner together. Then, when it got dark, we walked into the field behind the temple. Empty Coke cans and plastic bags crinkled under our steps. Trash litters the dead grass, practically the whole field, even though New Year's was in April and now it's winter. You know, I said, I used to think it was cool the monks lived outside the city. Like it made them gangster or something. I lit a cig from a pack Monk B had given me. But now I think it's sad. I guess the city decided there's no space for the what. Everything's sad. That's how it goes, Monk D said. He put a cig in his mouth, but then the lighter didn't work because of the wind. He signaled for me to help. Our faces leaned into each other. Our cigs touched and lit up. That's messed up, I said, stepping back and looking around. The last time I'd stood in the middle of the field, I talked to an army recruiter. It wasn't the first time recruiters tabled at Cambodian New Year, but it was the first time I saw an Asian guy doing it. I recognized him as some Hmong dude who'd been a few years ahead of me in school. He was smiling in his uniform, ignoring the mean mugging looks from the Cambo grandpas, who hate Hmong people for no legit reason. We started talking, and he asked me how life had been. I didn't tell him I was working 2 shit jobs, that I'd dropped out of my first semester of community college. I shrugged and then said, He told me he got it, before handing me a stack of army literature. A week later, I flipped through the pamphlets. I liked how organized the headings and subheadings and bullet points were. They could detail every second of a guy's future, I thought. Do you have a picture of your girlfriend? Monk D asked me out of nowhere. I don't carry pictures of my girlfriend in my monk robes, I answered. Explain her to me then, Monk D said. Let me finish this smoke. I glanced at the temple. All the lights were turned off, so it looked like a giant black blob. It seemed weird that people went there for answers, peace, or anything really. I thought about Mally's body. My hands cupping her breasts as she got on top of me, the way she always did. Feeling myself inside of her, and herself surrounding me. How warm that made me feel. Breathing in her smell. I could feel a hard-on growing under my robes. I didn't feel embarrassed though. It was dark out. And I felt comfortable around Monk D, like he wouldn't mind. I finished my cig and threw the butt into a patch of dirt. I described Mally to him. Basic stuff. How tall she was, the color of her hair. Monk D told me to stop. No, explain how she is in the world, he said, waving his hand so that his cig made spirals in the air. I started explaining Mally, which parts stick out to me, the things I will never understand yet will always appreciate. His eyes were closed and his cig started to burn out. He looked happy. It feels good I had something to do with this. How I explain Mally. Knows exactly how to say something to make it funny. Walks like she knows exactly where she's going all the time, even when she has no idea. Laughs a lot, like she sees something you don't see, not in a mean way, more like she wants you to be in on it too. Super protective over people she loves, like her cousins. Sounds smart and like she's from around here at the same time. My second to last day at the temple started normal enough. I woke up and did push-ups, then did some chores. I don't know why, but I was turned on the entire morning, almost hard. Definitely had a chub the entire time. I polished the relics in the prayer room. I was gonna find a place to bait in the afternoon, but at lunchtime, the Cha told everyone to gather in the garden. By the biggest statue of Buddha, the one lying on the ground like he's chilling in bed and listening to music. We chugged the rest of our cold porridge and walked outside. Monk A was already there, standing by the Buddha's giant feet. He had lit incense and stuck the little stick straight into the ground. There was haze floating all around him. It made him look pretty cool and badass, to be honest, like a superhuman. When everyone crowded around Monk A, he called for me to stand next to him. Then the other monks sat down in the dirt. They assumed their usual prayer positions, where you tuck your legs under your ass, and it feels like doing core exercises. Like planking for an hour straight, or until you start shaking. Monk A chanted a prayer and the other monks joined. I stood there like a dope with nothing to do. I looked at Monk D and he smirked at me, which made me feel better. When Monk A finished chanting, he placed his hands on both my shoulders. The other monks all looked at me too. Monk A started speaking about me, how my time here had almost ended, how my dad would be proud to see me honoring his life. Then he touched the Buddha statue's feet, and gave a long speech on the original temple the Buddha's based on. People in Cambodia used to climb a mountain to visit this what? They'd wash the great Buddha's feet to bring themselves good luck. To center themselves in a correct place. Before I knew it, the Cha was handing me a bowl of water, telling me to wash the giant feet. Come on, do it, he said. This is what you asked for. When I didn't budge, he pushed me closer to the statue. He pointed at the wet rag inside the bowl, then at the feet. I lowered myself to the ground and made dark with circles on the stone. I looked behind me, and the monks' heads were down. They chanted another prayer. I had an audience cheering me on, but I was still just doing chores. Things I won't miss. Doing the dishes and Po's laundry. Po talking at me about the future. Po talking at me about the past. Thinking about my dad, seeing him around town. Interacting with Monk A. Getting random texts from fools I don't know looking for weed. Being forced to decide things for myself. After I was sure the monks were asleep, I went outside again. I wanted to get high. I walked back to the giant Buddha and stared at his feet while I smoked my joint. I waited for a weed vision to come to me. I'd cleaned the Buddha's feet to the chanting of a bunch of monks, and now the feet were supposed to become my spirit guides, unlock the secrets of the world for me, tell me about myself and Dad, grant me some out-of-body experience. Lead me someplace better, anywhere. But the feet stayed the same, and so did I. Just a big old rock in me, a regular dope getting high. Monk D came up to my side. You've been holding out on me, he said, taking the joint. I thought of asking him to explain the feet washing ritual, but then I realized Monk A had already explained it. It's getting cold, I said instead. Let's go to my room. I continued to stare at the Buddha's feet as I waited for Monk D to kill the joint. I remember thinking that the feet's true power might be unleashed if a real monk was high. But still, nothing happened. In my room we sat on my sleeping mat, high as fuck, our backs against the wall. I showed Monk D a photo of Mally, which had been in the jeans I'd worn coming to the temple. It was printed on regular computer paper. Nothing special. Mally was smiling and sitting on the beach in a bikini, the happiest she's been, I like to think. It was the only time we got out of town together. Monk D was in awe of the photo. He held it close to his face. Stop hogging my girlfriend, I said, laughing, pushing his hands so we could both see her. I left my hand on top of his. I felt nice touching his skin. It was a damn good photo of Mally. Seeing its effect on Monk D reminded me of that, made me feel content about myself. Like I'd accomplished something real in having Mally as a girlfriend. My hand made its way to Monk D's upper thigh. His hand rested on my knee, still holding the photo. Our eyes both fixed on Mally, but I think we saw each other too, and ourselves. My other hand reached under my robes, started stroking. He did the same. Neither of us were rushing. Finishing didn't seem like the point. We shouldn't make a mess, I said. The moss won't appreciate cleaning come off our robes. Monk D nodded in agreement, head moving up and down, at the same pace as his wrist. I looked around the room. There was only the sleeping mat, my normal clothes, and another Buddha statue. We could do it on Buddha, I joked. You want to get me kicked out? He said. Do monks ever get fired from their jobs? I asked. Monk D slowed down his stroking. I'm not trying to find out. I guess this is the best place to do it, I said, pointing at the photo. Are you sure? He asked. I considered what it would mean if we came onto a photo of Mally. Then I wondered if I was spending too much time worrying about a piece of paper. I rose to my knees and took the photo from him. Let's do it on the backside, I said, turning it over. He got up too and faced me in the same position, like we were reflections. For balance he grabbed my shoulder. I let go of myself. He unloaded himself. And I felt transported. Things I'm looking forward to. Not sure yet, but I'm sure something will come up. Something has before. By the time Poe picks me up it's already dark. The winter days are short, his shifts are long. I spent most of the day with Monk D. We did our chores, ate lunch in the field, said bye. We didn't talk about the previous night. But we shared something between us, and that felt good, like how I used to feel when I'd get donuts with Dad. I'll see you, Monk D said when it was time for me to go. He punched my side. At some wedding when you get back, I'll be doing the blessing, and you'll have to serve me food. Yeah, for sure, I said, punching him back. In Poe's truck I watched the what shrink in the side mirror. It's a black blob again, a shadow. You can't see the temple's details, none of the monks walking around. None of the fake gold lamps. Not the peeling orange, yellow, and blue paint. The rusty old parking signs in Khmer, darkness covers them completely. The way you can tell it's the temple is by the outline. I wonder if that's all you can know about someone, their outline. I wonder what will end up as mine. We turn left, and the what leaves my sight. The Cha's obsessed with Khmer covers of the Beatles, I say. Poe laughs. Well, Khmer folk played the songs better. He kept his eyes on the road. It's 'cause America stole sounds from us in the first place. They stole our sounds and they dropped bombs on us, and now you wanna go fight for them, you stupid shit. He grabs my shoulder and gives me a nudge. Just kidding, Poe adds. Look, I know the Cha's giving you a hard time. He's only joking. I was looking it up, and there are a lot of benefits you get from enlisting. You can go to college. You'll always have a job. I get worried about you, that you'll become like your dad, like a dipshit. But this is a smart move. Logical. He continues talking about the reasons my decision makes sense. He counts off all the financial benefits I would have. I nod, and keep nodding. The streets outside slowly become more city-like as we get farther from the Wat. Fewer abandoned barns and more empty parking lots. More buses and less dirt. As Poe talks, I realize I never asked Monk D why he came to the temple. I can see his reasons though, a shitload of them. I can see the expectations crowding his old life, both his own and the ones hurled at him, how they probably stopped running together right, how adding them up to total one person, it'd result in a Frankenstein-looking giant. Its proportions all fucked up, it'd limp around, yell out noises that weren't words, and try to be understood. And I can see that in becoming a monk, he could shed these expectations, replace them with something else. Something with a clear outline. But if I tell Monk D this, I bet he'd blow smoke in my face and laugh, pass me his cig and urge me to chill. Some things can't be explained to death, he'd say. Guess they don't need to be, I'd say. That's how shit goes, we'd say.